there's some things on my mind, man. There's some things on my mind. So it's just things feel a little like different, right? And different can be bad, different can be good. Things don't feel like they normally do. And what's been normal for the Panthers over the last few off seasons hasn't been the best. I'm not gonna lie to you. So feeling different can be a good thing. Is it? I don't know. But just the vibes coming out of Panthers minicamp as we have these 4 or 5 weeks left before training camp that none of us will get to see. Sip my water on that one. I just want to talk about some things in my minicamp takeaways. I guess it'll be my minicamp takeaways lumped into one. But the thing that just feels like is things are different this year in terms of just the goals, right? It feels like everybody is just bought in to what's the messaging and the details and what the main objective is for the team, right? Because I'm thinking back to last year, right? And Dan Morgan's first year on the job, he comes out and says, "They ask him, what are the expectations, Dan? Like, what are the expectations for this season coming up?" And Dan's like, "We don't really want to set expectations. We want to just go out there, do our thing, compete, play hard, and then eventually we want to get to the point where the logo is feared again." You know what I'm saying? Like all that good jargon and whatnot. But this year, things just feel different. Like he was very firm and specific. About not wanting to put any expectations or weight on what things are. It felt like he learned that from his predecessor, Scott Fitterer. Because do you remember Scott Fitterer when he was kind of asked, I guess, a similar question? He just said they felt like they had, and this is confidence from him, of course, as a general manager doing his job, I guess. But he said he felt like they had put a good roster together and felt like all they needed to do was just drop a quarterback into there and they'd be ready to rock and roll, which is what you want to do ideally, right? You don't want to put your quarterback into the fire and them have no protection, not great receivers, not great defense to back him up, all those things, which ended up happening anyway. We know, of course, Scott Fitterer thought things were sweet. They thought that they could take the Steve Wilkes recipe, but you can have the recipe, but if you ain't got the right cook, things don't just happen the way that it did the previous year, right? Even when you do have the same people, it's hard to really pick up exactly where you left off in the previous year, right? They tried to put Frank Reich in that position instead of Steve Wilkes. We know what happened there. And so Dan Morgan probably learned from that and was like, yeah, I'm not going to put expectations on this team, guys. I'm not going to do it. This is my first year. I'm just trying to figure out what's going on and get this thing going in the right direction. This year, this guy went on Pat McAfee, and he's talking about the division title. I'm not mad at any of this, but he's talking division, competing in a division. And I get it. Like, again, I said last year has no inclination on what's going on now, but the fact that we pretty much almost split with every team. You beat the Falcons in the final game of the season. You lost to them earlier, Danny Dalton, whatever. The Saints, you got smoked at the beginning, but you beat them. And the close one during the year, the Bucks, the home game, you literally fumbled the game away in overtime. You had it in field goal range. Literally was the game for you, but you gave it away. Literally. And then, of course, you got beat on the road. But letting you know that this Division 1 is not going to have any kind of world beaters. It typically feels like this division is a 9 or 10 win division every year. And 9 and 10 wins is nothing to sneeze at because the Panthers haven't had a winning season in 7 years? But that's not out of the, you know what I'm saying? It's not out of the realm of what you think can be reached if you feel good about what you've done, right? Based off of last year being competitive on your worst year. You won 5 games, you still split with most of the division. And so him going on Pat McAfee and talking about that, having that level of confidence, it's just different. Then you got Jalen Coker doing an interview at Mandatory Minicamp. He mentioned, look, he said, hey, we're talking about playoffs around here. We're talking about even Super Bowl around here, which sounds crazy till it ain't. I didn't think we were going to the Super Bowl in 2015, especially after Kelvin Benjamin went down. But what we do, with a one-loss season, just one of the most surprising occurrences I've ever seen. Not saying that's what's going to happen to us, but you literally just never know. And you should always strive for Super Bowls. And then, of course, you got Chuba. Chuba did an interview with the Charlotte Observer He said he's thinking the goal for everybody around there is Super Bowl. Everything sounds crazy till it ain't. The word Google. If somebody told you a long time ago they're going to put all the information in the world that you could possibly ask for, you just type it into a search bar and hit enter, and instantly all the answers you need will be able to pop up. And you know what we're going to call it? We're going to call it Google. You would have got laughed at if you said that in the 70s. You would have got laughed at. It sounds crazy. Everything sounds crazy until it ain't, right? So the Panthers wanting to compete for a Super Bowl and having that goal and trying to reach it, it shouldn't feel crazy. It shouldn't. That should be everybody's goal. No more baby steps and trying to say, oh, we're just trying to compete and play hard every week, put our best foot forward, and if it happens, it happens. If it doesn't, it doesn't. We're just trying. No. Division. Super Bowl. I'm loving the mentality. I'm loving it. And then even from the coaches, because it started from the top with Dan Morgan, trickled down to the players, but it did not skip over the coaches. They had the chalk talk for the PSL owners, an exclusive event, which is kind of cool. It's like a fireside chat, I guess, with Canales, Ejiro, and Brad Isaac. Brad Isaac talking about winning the division. Ejiro Rivero, playoffs. Everybody seems to be on the same page. The goals are clear, what they want to do. And Ejiro, this is the guy that's coming off having the worst defense in NFL history. That's going to be on his resume from here until somebody's even worse. But it's going to be hard to be as bad as them 2024 Panthers. I'm going to tell you that right now. It's going to be hard to be worse than the 2024 Panthers in terms of a defense. And so he's going to be forever stamped to that for forever. But even he's saying playoffs. I like this mentality. I like it. I like it. If you don't believe you can do it, you're not going to be able to do it. You got to believe anything can happen. If you're not believing that's possible, what are we showing up for? It's June. We got plenty of time for the realism to kick in when we start playing games. This is the perfect time to be delusional. You should feel good about where you at. Everybody feels good. Everybody thinks they're going to win a Super Bowl. No, they don't. I mean, they say that, but there's legit question marks. I've had legit question marks before, but we could have our starting quarterback that we drafted 3 years ago be competing with Daniel Jones while missing time with the shoulder injury. Things could be worse. Do they seem like they want to win a Super Bowl? Is it realistic for them? Probably a lot less than us, even though they have a good overall roster. If you ain't got that quarterback position together, it could be worse, is all I'm saying. It could be worse is the point. But this is what they wanted when they talked about bringing guys in from winning college programs. You drafted Lathan Ransom for the national champions. You drafted guys from the SEC who play highly competitive football. Your quarterback went to Alabama, where they're used to competing for championships. You got guys from Texas and JT Sanders. This is what they wanted to do, right? Bring in those guys that are used to winning, that they don't like losing. That losing just don't feel right. Like, ugh. And they're also willing to put in the work to be able to get there. They know what it takes to get there as well. You even did that in free agency. You went and got Turk Wharton. Turk Wharton's a Super Bowl champ. Went and got Bobby Brown. Bobby Brown's a Super Bowl champ. Right? Roseboom, Super Bowl champ, your backup linebacker. You know what I'm saying? So you went and did what you're talking about, putting that championship DNA on the roster. Guys who knows what it takes. Guys who believe. Guys who are willing to have that audacity. That, hey, why not us? Why not us? Right? Why not? And so to me, I love the mentality. Nicole Ivory, what up, though? Appreciate you checking me out. We're talking about my minicamp takeaways. The next thing that I noticed is the competition level is ramped up. And you might have heard this before because everybody that was on the beat, they reported this information. But they talked about how intense these practices were. They talked about the players talking trash to each other. Bryce Young talking trash. J.C. Horn, that's the talking trash. That's just a normal occurrence. That's just the grass is green. We know these things. These are things that are always going to happen. J.C. Horn was a rookie at joint practice. I remember vividly. There was a fight that we broke out against the Ravens. He was one of the main ones talking trash in the middle of it, mixing it up as a rookie. This is what he does. But Bryce Young, Bryce Young, this is the type of competition that we need. And then Captain Munnerlin, shout out to Cap. He was at practice with some of the OG, triple OGs. The legends were invited. He said that it gave them vibes of how it used to be back in the day when him and Cam was talking trash at practice. And when Cam and TD, just how competitive it gets internally. When you have that competition against offense and defense and they're pushing each other, iron sharpens iron. That's the energy we need. It brings out the best in everybody. Offense, certain days, they was hitting the defense in the head, moving the ball at will. The final day, sounds like the defense got the best of them. And you may be worried saying our defense was bad, man. Why would it's not a good thing if they're doing things to our offense. Hopefully all that money we spent, $200 million in contract value we spent on the defense this offseason is actually paying off. That should be the goal. It should feel good to have your defense actually making some plays, right? So I'm not tripping. I want them both to go at it. I'd rather them both go at it and have a mid off than one side dominating the other, and we really don't know how either one would do. Right? Yes, it's definitely the energy we need. But not just competition between offense and defense, competition at the individual positions as well. It's ramped up, and that's because the level of talent has increased, right? They've added depth on the D-line. Not that we had a ton of competition before, but Shy Tuttle, he's not a starter anymore. He's not. Derek Brown, he's back. We brought in Cam Jackson via the draft. Edge rusher. Wanham has returned. But you brought in Pat Jones. You double dip in edge in the draft to bring in competition behind those guys, to push them. Linebacker, Christian Rosebloom, experienced in the system, special teams player. May not be the most highly touted, but he can push Trevin Wallace. He can. And as much as we faced injuries at the linebacker position last year, it is a welcome sight to have some linebacker depth. Experienced at that. So I'm glad for that. Wide receiver, where the competition is the thickest. Hunter Renfrow, David Moore, T-Mac, Jimmy Horn Jr., Jacoby George, Kobe Hudson. These are the new guys that they brought in that are going to push. That wide receiver, there's heated arguments amongst the fan base about who is going to be our wide receiver 5 and 6. Between David Moore, a guy who played a lot, and Hunter Renfrow, a guy that, if he can get back to anything with close to what he was, he could be a weapon for us. An underrated weapon at that. And so David Moore is playing significant snaps because Xavier Legette wasn't playing at the par. That's that competition. But Xavier Legette has had a great offseason, on and off the field. Right? On and off the field. Look at Sharp in practice. The practice that T-Mac mixed, he went off in the red zone with Bryce, hooking up with Bryce. They're saying he looks bigger. In the running back room as well. The running back room, you added a 1,000-yard back in Rico Dowdle. You drafted ETN, but you still brought back Blackshear. Only 3 running backs going to be able to stay. How's it going to shake out? Challenging the roster. Challenging the roster is what Dave Canales has been talking about from the jump. Challenge the roster. Challenge them to be better. You're going to sink or swim. Pressure can make a pipe burst, but pressure can also make diamonds. Which one are you going to be? because the best man gonna win, and the best man gonna play. And so you got to step up. You got to step up. And then the next takeaway I have is the second year players that I think could be set up for a breakout season. JT Sanders came to camp in great shape. Dave Canales has been raving about how great he looks, how much weight he lost. He talked about how he stopped eating Domino's pizza. I personally have stopped eating Domino's pizza as well for the summer. I'm trying to trim up. So me and JT Sanders on that wave. We looking good right now. Both of us looking a little leaner. You know what I'm saying? We both feeling good about ourselves. We've been putting in the work. He's moving well. And he will most certainly get the first team reps now with Tommy Tremble out yet again. Last year in free agency, in training camp, Tommy Tremble missed time with a hamstring. Ian Thomas was also hurt. That thrusted Jatavian Sanders into the starting role, getting reps with the ones. Maybe before he's ready, I don't know. But he seemed to be fine. And so now, with another year on his belt, him being in better shape, him understanding the assignment, he had an interview himself where he just seems really locked in. He said that he had to drop his manhood and get in the weight room, get stronger, get more physical to hold up, to be able to be that every down tight end that can block, but also run routes. We know we split him out as a wide receiver in the slot on the outside at times as well. Trying to get better after the catch. A breakout season could be shaping up for JT Sanders. I'm here for it. Bring back the emergence of the tight end in this offense. But it seems like he's ready. It seems like he's ready. It seems like he understands. He's putting in the work. He's been working out with Bryce. I'm loving the energy. A young guy that gets it. Taking care of his body on his own outside of what the team requires. A young guy that gets it. Shaw Smith-Wade, another second-year guy in the secondary, playing nickel, playing corner. According to J.C. Horn, he's had the best offseason out of anybody on the team. And he had the most impressive camp. Making plays, getting his hands on passes, knockaways, interceptions. Being versatile. Lining up inside, lining up outside. Knowing the calls, communicating. Something that was far-fetched last year. Communicating. People knowing their assignments, being in the right spot, not having blown coverages. That's the stuff I want to hear. When I hear communication, that's big for me, because I'm thinking of the Bears game where DJ Moore scored that long touchdown and him and J.C. Horn had a miscommunication. One guy got set free. Guys not knowing what they're doing. We had a blown coverage on the first drive against the Saints for a touchdown. So hearing people communicating and making progress there, that's the stuff that you want to see. Dave Canella says that Shaw's been putting in that work, him and Damani. Damani's another second-year guy playing safety. They're probably going to add a vet, but it seems like he's going to get every opportunity to compete, to get some playing time. At worst, he's depth. I believe in him personally, but this is a guy that's experienced, got a lot of experience last year. We got some tape on him to learn what type of player he is. He's an undrafted free agent. So getting contributions from him is different. It's like the different that I talked about, how stuff feels different. So I'm here for a breakout from them too. And Xavier Legette, we talked about it a little bit. He appears to have gotten bigger. And he fell on the sword and acknowledged that he needed to work on his hands. And now he doesn't have to be that guy, the main guy. He can go against those number 2 corners because we have T-Mac. He acknowledged that he needed to work on his hands, work on the jug machine, working on catching with his hands, not his body. He's a tireless worker from all accounts. Moving better because he got the surgery. I'm here for a Xavier Legette breakout. He's been on a generational run this offseason, man. He was the correspondent for the. This dude was even on a Christmas card that I got from Fanatics. I opened it. It's one of those cards that has sound. You open it up and it plays songs and a poem. He was working with Fanatics doing that. Not to mention the music video. This guy has been busy. But he's been putting in that work as well. You can see it. You can see him looking a lot more leaner and a lot bigger. You can see a lot more suddenness in his route running. Adam Thielen has been on him, in his ear telling him, trying to help him get right as well. And so I'm good, man. I think that him being a wide receiver 2 and just hearing him, even with Teteroa McMillan out of practice, him still getting multiple touchdowns in practice, hooking up with Bryce in the red zone. That's what we want the big body receivers to come alive in the red zone. To come alive in the red zone. And so I'm here for the second year breakouts for all of them. I haven't heard much about Wallace or Crumity at this part of the year, but when you play those physical positions like linebacker and D-line, you're not going to hear much about those guys. That's just the way it is when you're practicing in T-shirts and helmets. But I'll be curious to pay attention to them at training camp and see how things shake out. Last but not least, the takeaway in the Bryce Young leadership and his growth is really, really starting to show and emerge. So Bryce Young comes into the year 3, ending last year on a high note. It's an unquestioned starter. I mean, he was an unquestioned starter last year, but I think the big question marks about him as far as if he can be that guy have been answered. The front office did what they needed to do to fortify the offensive line. They gave him a new weapon at wide receiver. And we've heard about this new Bryce. We talked about it a little bit earlier, talking trash. You know, you start getting a little bit more comfortable with yourself and comfortable with who you are. You're not overly concerned with what people think. You kind of establish yourself a little bit more. We saw Cam starting to get a lot more comfortable with himself the clothes, the blonde chin patch. As he got older and matured, he started to really come into his own and figure out who he wanted to be and be comfortable with who he was. I think Bryce is not fully there, but he's getting there. I think there's a certain persona that he wants to put on for the public and the media just to stay cool. But I think behind closed doors and just what we hear from everybody, he's starting to warm up, starting to assert himself. He's the one that put in a strong word for Teteroa McMillan. The front office listened to him. I mean, this is just Bryce really trying to mature as a franchise quarterback and take that step. JT Sanders talked about how much of a tireless worker Bryce is and says that don't just think it's Bryce Young throwing routes on air and going to the field. No, Bryce Young puts in work in the weight room. He may seem kind of scrawny because of whatever, but Bryce has been durable, guys. You don't just become durable by not putting in time in the weight room and getting stronger and putting on some form of muscle to be able to hold up. It's a long season. And knock on wood, Bryce has been able to maintain himself. And so I just think that what he been doing on his own as well with Jalen Coker and JT Sanders out there, I'm sure they're going to get the group together again before training camp like they've done the past 2 years. I'm excited. And the more personality that shows as we start to win and he has more fun, I think the better it'll be. Because as a leader, that stuff is infectious. People want somebody to lead. Inherently, some people are leaders, some people are followers. There's nothing wrong with being a follower. There's nothing wrong with being a follower when it comes to a team. If you're being led the right way, because they're loyal, they're going to go where you want to go. They're going to depend on their leadership. Bryce Young seems to have the composure and all the makeup to be that leader. Canales talked about Bryce being more comfortable in the system, being more comfortable speaking up and saying what type of stuff he likes in terms of how things are thrown or where the ball location is going to be, just in terms of how they construct the offense. Dave Canales has always talked about the team is going to be what Bryce Young becomes, but the team's going to become whatever Bryce Young likes and whatever he's good at. And so now that they have another year in the system, they'll be able to lean into that more. And I think that part of Bryce's growth is the part of Canales' growth as well. I talked about it in the Panther Banter podcast, shameless plug by your boy, about why Bryce Young turned it around. I thought that there was some growing pains that Dave Canales had to go through. I think he's a good coach. I think he's a practical guy. I think he has the experience under the right guys, that he has the answers to the test in the bag. He just needed to get some data and some information just on the players, but on himself, and to be able to put them in the proper position to succeed. And he talked about now that they've been in here, they don't have to introduce the basics like terminology and all that because everybody's been in here another year. They can add a lot more wrinkles and stuff that Bryce Young is cool with. Bryce Young is creative. We saw him flicking the ball forward. We saw him using his legs a lot more. A very unorthodox style of play out there. The footwork is unique. The throw mechanics are unique. The body shape and build is unique. He's an outlier. And so instead of trying to mold him into something that he's not, meet him halfway. Meet him at the stuff that he's good at. Give him more of that stuff. But also say, hey, this is the kind of concepts that I like, that I know work, that you're going to have to work to get to as well. And then once you do that and establish that foundation, then you can start building off of it and getting creative, and then we're all good there. Because this is the first time Bryce has had the consecutive coordinator for 2 years in a row since being here. Hey, maybe even college. Because he had, Sark, and then he had Bill O.B., and even for Canales the past, 3 or 4 years, they've had to start from ground up and introduce the system all over again. In Tampa, introduce the system. In Carolina the first year, had to introduce the system from the ground up. And now this is the first time since he's been a play caller that he can get a little bit of not a head start, but you don't have to start from behind like everybody else does when they start from scratch. So the growth of Dave is going to be evident as well, especially with the growth of Bryce Young. I'm excited, man. If you're not excited, bro, I don't know what to tell you. Again, it's June. Why can't we be delusional in June? If you can't be delusional in June, what are you doing this for, man? Why are you a fan? If you can't be a little delusional in June, it's okay to be excited. I keep saying it. It's okay to be excited about your team. I know you've been hurt in the past, but it's okay. It's all right. Don't fight the feeling. Invite the feeling. If you're skeptical, you're just skeptical. But if you feel in your bones that something feels a little different and feels good, just embrace it. And if the heartbreak comes, the heartbreak comes. Only one team is going to be happy at the end of the year in February anyway. Right? You might as well enjoy the ride. Might as well. Because it's going to be a roller coaster, as NFL always is. So you might as well enjoy the ride. But all right, man, that's my time, man. It's Aaron Duncan here. I appreciate you guys watching. Again, make sure you check me out on social media at Dunk On Demand on all platforms, except for YouTube, where you can find me on my media platform, Unnecessary Bluntness, at UB Sports Talk, youtube.com/at UB Sports Talk. You can just look up at UB Sports Talk in the search bar as well on YouTube. Now it's a new thing they do. You can find me there. If you're just watching on YouTube, I appreciate you watching the replay. Make sure you are subscribed to the channel. That way you're up to date on all this stuff. And we got a lot of things coming down the pipeline that I'm excited about. I appreciate you guys watching. Nicole Ivory, thank you for tuning in via the app. Make sure you're here again next week. We're going to be here on Panthers Weekly every Wednesday at 6 p.m. Eastern on the Bleacher Report app. Love you guys. See you. Peace.